Welcome to a play-by-play review. I'm your host Henry, and the regular season for 2025 is now over. Absolutely crazy. So we're on to the playoffs here, but we have one final week of football to recap. And to be honest, the actual games themselves were mostly pretty boring and not very good. Like half the teams were playing their backups, and most of them didn't really matter. This is less, it's going to be a bit different from, I think, a lot of the other weeks where I will largely be recapping the games. This time I'm going to be more just kind of, there's a lot more to cover, essentially. As, you know, outside of really only a few, most of them were just really deciding draft position or like specific playoff seeding, whereas most of the playoff spots at this point had already been decided. And there's plenty of news on the coaching front in terms of firings and all that, which I'll cover as we get to each team. So we'll start with the first of the two Saturday games. The Carolina Panthers going into Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. And this game was very big because had the Panthers won this game, they would have been in the playoffs no problem. Though they did not wind up winning. They lost 16-14. And however, though, the Buccaneers were still not in the playoffs yet. They were both tied at 8-9, but the Panthers held tiebreaker over them. So the Buccaneers needed the New Orleans Saints to win in order to advance the playoffs. Otherwise, the Panthers would have got in regardless. This game, it was extremely rainy. Like, it was pouring down rain over in Tampa. Kalijah Kancey was also back for the Buccaneers, and they jumped out to a 10-0 lead in the first quarter. But after that, just didn't really seem to do much, to be honest. They only scored 6 points in the rest of the game, but it was enough in the end. It seemed like the Panthers, they just took a little bit to get going, but once they did, it seemed like they were going to kind of pull away with it. They were really sloppy to start, but they started to put things together. Unfortunately for them, in the third quarter especially, the refs just seemed to have it out for them. I don't know why. They were just calling some really egregiously bad penalties. Not in the sense that like it was obvious. It's like you just don't know why they're calling stuff. And even like some non-penalties where there was at one point, it was like a 1st and 10, I think. And Bryce Young tried to like throw a swing pass out to Rico Dowdle, but it was clearly a backwards pass that Dowdle dropped. And he then picked it up and tried to advance it, or was looking to run for it and had some room. But the refs blew it dead, and then for some reason they ruled it as an out-of-bounds pass, despite it not being out of bounds. It was just really weird all around, essentially. And in the end, it didn't really matter that the Panthers lost. It was really just Tedero McMillan had a good game, and that was about it. I'll spoil a little bit ahead to the Saints-Falcons game. The Falcons would win, so the Carolina Panthers at 8-9 are going to the playoffs as the 4 seed, of course. And they are taking on the Rams in the playoffs, which is kind of hilarious. So the night game on Saturday, if you had listened to my previous episode, it was the Seattle Seahawks versus the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. And I did a play-by-play commentary of that whole game. It was definitely not the most interesting game in the world, I'll say that. In terms of offensive showcase, the Seahawks won 13-3. The Seahawks defense was just playing out of its mind. It was really, really good. And then the Seattle run game was also really, really good. Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker each, they combined for 160, 170 yards, something like that. A lot, essentially. Meanwhile, the 49ers on both sides of the ball just couldn't do much. Their passing attack was pretty good. Or passing defense, I should say. The 49ers passing defense was pretty good, but other than that, not too much. They got lucky that this wasn't worse. The Seahawks failed multiple times in the red zone, or just in or around the red zone, either scoring field goals or no points. Jason Myers missed 2 field goals in this game, which was crazy, including one that from, what was it, 28, I think, or 26? Really, a really, really short field goal that I was going crazy about in the fourth quarter. Didn't end up mattering, but yeah. So the Seahawks clinch 1 seed. The Niners are the 5 seed. And should be interesting to see because I have a feeling they might see each other again in the playoffs. I think there's a decent chance that happens. Also, the Seahawks, or the 49ers, I think are the 6th seed, actually. Let me double check on that. Yes, they're actually the 6th seed. The Rams are the 5 seed. That's what it is. All right, so we'll move on to Sunday here. And again, I'm going to be going through a lot of these games pretty quickly because most of them were not really all that interesting. So we'll start with the Miami Dolphins going into New England to take on the Patriots. Patriots were fighting for the 1 seed, so they kept most of the starters in the whole time. Did I even write down notes for this? I might not have. I might have completely skipped over this game in my notes. Oh, no, I did. It was actually, they were at 425. I just have it up at the top because I think I'm the Patriots favored. Anyway. Okay, so we'll start with the Dolphins-Patriots, even though this was a late afternoon game. So this was at 425. I thought it was 1 o'clock for some reason. Going into the week, there was the Stephon Diggs, misdemeanor assault charge or something like that, or whatever it was. And then literally the day after, Christian Barmore also got charged with an assault or something like that. It was not a good in between couple of days for the Patriots in terms of legal issues. But on the field, they were really good. They won 38-10 in a game that was never close. Quinn Ewers was whatever. It wasn't exactly, spectacular. It looked like for a moment, there was going to be a time where the Dolphins could have made it interesting, and then Ewers threw an interception in the end zone, and then the Patriots just kind of went off from there. Ramondre Stevenson had 7 carries for 131 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So, yeah, that was kind of how it is. Right now, it is looking like the Dolphins are keeping around Mike McDaniel as their head coach, which is an interesting move. But I mean, there's a good chance they move on from Tua in this offseason. And it'd be interesting to see who they go after in free agency or the draft. Because I'm assuming they're going to go look for a new quarterback. Just because what's happening, the past 2 years, basically, past 3 years even, just has not really been working out for Miami. And obviously, losing, Tyreek Hill doesn't help at all to injury early on in the season, but still, it's just, I think we've kind of seen the writing on the wall for Tua for a good while. So there is a good chance he's gone. For the Patriots, though, they finish as the 2 seed at a very, very strong 14-3 record. One of the best teams in football. One of the more surprising teams in football. I think people were expecting them to be better, just not quite this good. So now we'll move on to, I'll just go over the Commanders and Dolphins now. Or not Commanders, the Commanders and the Eagles now, just because they're also, I'll just go down the list. So the Commanders and Eagles were a 425 game. They were a late afternoon game, but doesn't really matter too much. So the Commanders going into Philadelphia, and interestingly enough, I wasn't really rooting for them to lose as a Commanders fan. I wouldn't have been upset with a loss because it would have basically locked them into, I think, the number 5 pick in the draft. They actually surprisingly won. And they won 24-17. They finished with the 7th pick in the draft, so not the biggest slide in the world whatsoever. They were, I think, coming into the week, they were locked into at least this number 7 pick, and I was expecting them to lose. I mean, they were playing against the Eagles backups, but still I was expecting them to lose. We barely saw any starters for the Eagles. I think Jordan Davis and Devontae Smith were the only starters we saw for an extended period of time. Even still, the Eagles didn't look really that good. Tanner McKee was whatever, but the Commanders are also obviously pretty much starting all backups at this point, with how many injuries they've had. Josh Johnson was starting. There's no Laramie Tunsil in this game. Deron Payne was actually in this game, and he was having a good time. But it was just ugly football, but fun ugly football. There is definitely some positives. Terry McLaurin was in there for a couple, for I think almost the full first half. And he had a pretty solid showing for, half of football basically. And in the end, it was, I don't know. I'm surprised the Commanders won. I get they're playing the Eagles backups, but the Eagles backups did not look good, to be honest. There was a point where the Commanders were on the goal line basically, and I don't remember if it was 4th down or not, but they basically ran a rollout to the left, and Josh Johnson pump fake Keely Ringo so bad he literally turned around and started running back into the end zone to try and cover someone at the back of it when he could have just ran forward and tackled Josh Johnson to prevent the touchdown. It was a very odd decision by Keely Ringo, unless he was deliberately trying to lose the game, but I don't know why, because the Eagles, had they won this game, they would have gotten the 2 seed and gone to play Green Bay, a very hobbled Green Bay Packers. Instead, they fall to the 3 seed, and now they have to play San Francisco, which is a very big difference. So, if the Eagles lose to San Francisco in the first round and say that the Bears win against the Packers, there's going to be some questions towards Nick Sirianni about, not treating this game with more respect and, trying to actually, go for the 2 seed since, once again, the difference between the 49ers and the Packers, like I get both of them have major injuries on defense, but you look at how they're playing, the 49ers are a significantly better team right now than the Packers are at the moment. Anyway, yeah. So that's one thing to look out there for the Eagles going into the playoffs. For the Commanders, they have since fired Joe Witt, their defensive coordinator, Joe Witt Jr., I should specify, their defensive coordinator, which is not very surprising. He was not doing a very good job at all this season. And then Cliff Kingsbury has mutually parted ways with the organization. It's not necessarily a firing because I think his contract was up. I don't remember exactly, but it's like it wasn't. They didn't say it was a firing, but he is nonetheless not coming back to the organization as the offensive coordinator. So the Commanders will be looking for a new offensive and defensive coordinator, as well as a new offensive line coach, which I was a little surprised they fired their offensive line coach, Bobby Johnson, because the offensive line was not really the issue this year. It wasn't amazing, but it was like very low on the list of things that were going horribly bad this year. It's not to say it was good. There's certainly problems with, especially more on the interior of the offensive line, but that was a little bit of a surprise for me, essentially, is what I'm getting to. So after that, we'll move back to the early window. I'll just move down. So I'll actually cover the Saints and the Falcons. So as I said before, the Saints would lose 17-19 in Atlanta against Atlanta. And this was one where, for the Saints, I don't think they cared too much that they lost. It's like they have a good draft position. They might have the guy for the future, Tyler Shuck. He's looking pretty good. They just need a lot more. They need a running game because Alvin Kamara, besides being injured, just did not look great this season. I think the fall off has finally hit him. Unfortunately, because Kamara has always been a very fun running back to watch, but it has been 8 years at this point since he's drafted. So actually, I think 9 years more about. Unfortunately, there's that. And the Falcons, they started off looking pretty good, and then just kind of petered out to, I feel like, your typical sloppy NFC South contest. It was whatever. Again, with a lot of these games, it's just there's not much to talk about. The Falcons looked fine. The Saints also looked fine. They didn't look quite. I feel like neither of them looked quite as good as they had been in the past couple weeks. When they were going on needless winning streaks. But hey, it's whatever. There's the sad fact of the reality for Falcons fans is that if they had beat the Jets back in week 13 or whatever it was, they would be in the playoffs right now. Which is, yeah. Also in Falcons news, I know a lot of Falcons fans are very happy about this, but Raheem Morris has been fired as their head coach. They also got rid of their general manager, whose name I'm blanking on. But yeah, so cleaning house for the Falcons, which is not surprising given their just incredible futility that they've had over the past, honestly, ever since the Super Bowl, to be honest. Since Super Bowl 51, it's been pretty mediocre for them at best. Going from Dan Quinn to Arthur Smith and then Raheem Morris, none of them have really worked out. So it'll be interesting to see who takes the job here in Atlanta in 2026, because there's definitely some pieces there. You obviously have Bijan Robinson and Drake London on the offense, and I guess Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. It's just with Penix, there's the injury question because he's now has 3 ACL tears in his career, not just in the NFL, but also including college. So there's just injury questions there. But I feel like there's cautious optimism if you're going into the Falcons job as a head coach, because you certainly have players there. There's just a lot of work to do. For the Saints, though, they obviously not firing Kellen Moore because he obviously got off to a rough start, but down the stretch with Tyler Shuck in command, they've looked a lot better. And so there's a bit of hope for the future, I'd say, in New Orleans. So I feel like for the first time in a good while, there's like actual, not just like trying to be a bit better than average with a retread quarterback. There's some actual hope, which should be interesting. I doubt they go quarterback in the offseason with how Shuck played, but maybe they do. I don't know. Who knows? So next up, the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals, the Battle of Ohio. In this one, the Browns would actually win 20-18 on a last-second field goal by Andre Schmidt. And other than that, it was fine. I mean, Shedeur looked okay. I feel like a little bit better than past couple games. Joe Burrow looked good, so of course the Bengals would lose. Burrow would throw 236 yards and 3 touchdowns, and like literally all the offensive leaders in this game were all Bengals, and the Browns still won. So yeah, that's about it. The biggest news in this game, though, was of course Myles Garrett, who was chasing the sack record. He was sitting at 22 sacks even. The sack record was 22 and a half. Myles Garrett would get 1 full sack and break the record to sit comfortably at 23 sacks in a single season. So congratulations to Myles Garrett, who is the sole possessor of the single season sack record. The Browns defense would also score 2 touchdowns in this game, a pick 6 and a fumble recovery. And yeah, that's about it. Like, it was more so the Browns defense than the Browns offense. Like, sure, was fine. I might even be overstating it because honestly, kind of am blanking a little bit on how well he played. Didn't throw an interception, so there's that at least. But it was one of the games of all time, which is, I feel like, what you can describe for a lot of these games. Shedeur finished with 111 passing yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions on exactly half of his attempts. He completed 11 attempts of 22. He was also sacked 6 times for 29 yards, so he finished with net passing yards of 82. So might have been a little bit generous, but honestly, it's whatever. They won the game. And I think they now hold the 6th pick in the draft. Also for the Browns, Kevin Stefanski has been fired. Andrew Berry, their general manager, is staying. I don't know why Berry's staying. I mean, I know he had a good draft this year. I've sung the praise of the 2025 draft before, but I mean, he was the guy who gave Deshaun Watson, traded for and then gave the contract to Deshaun Watson. Why that merits more time, I don't understand. But my guess is Stefanski will be a head coach somewhere else by the start of 2026 season because he seems to be pretty good when he actually has a good quarterback, and not the usual Browns quarterback under center. I think Stefanski is one of the bigger names in this hiring process. Former Coach of the Year winner, as much not that I think that award means all that much, but yeah. Also for the Bengals, oddly enough, Zach Taylor is still staying around. I think they haven't fired a single coordinator, so they're running the game back, pretending the season was a wash because of Joe Burrow's injury, I guess, and Trey Hendrickson's injury, I guess. I'm sorry, Bengals fans. you need a new owner. So after that, we go to the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. In Minnesota, the Packers were resting a lot of their starters, especially at quarterback. They were starting Clayton Tune, who did not play well. The Packers as a whole did not play well. They scored 1 field goal at the end of the game to make it 3-16. The Vikings didn't look amazing as well, but it's whatever. Clayton Tune finished 6 of 11 for 34 passing yards. He was also sacked 4 times for 41 yards. So he finished with a net passing yardage of -7. That kind of explains how the Packers went. There was also a run by Emmanuel Wilson that went a solid -17 yards. So yeah, I think the Packers are ready for the playoffs in the sense that they're ready to get this over with. Packers had also claimed Trayvon Diggs going into the week. I think he played. No idea how he played, to be honest. Was not paying too much attention in this game. And I mean, for the Vikings, it was a lost season. They did finish 9-8, so there's definitely some room there. McCarthy did also get injured in this game. He re-aggravated his hand injury, I think. Unfortunately, I assume he'll be fine going into next season, but you got to hope he can actually stay healthy for a full season and not just break down like he has so far in his career. In terms of injuries, I should say. This is also most likely Harrison Smith and C.J. Ham's final games in the NFL. Harrison Smith, a longtime safety for the Minnesota Vikings, who has I think finished with 39 career interceptions. Stalwart for many Vikings teams. C.J. Ham's also their fullback that they've had for forever. So 2 Vikings legends of the modern era are most likely going to retire. Justin Jefferson also eclipsed 1,000 yards on the season, finished with 8 catches with 101 yards on the game. So after that, we will go to the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants in New York. And this is also one where I think both teams are ready to flush this season down the toilet. The Giants would actually completely destroy the Cowboys, 34-17. Dak would actually start the first half of the game, and that was where the Cowboys put up 10 of their 17 points. Joe Milton would start the second half, and he did not look very good. Gunnar Olszewski, surprisingly enough, had probably the biggest game here. He had 8 catches for 102 yards. Tyrone Tracy had 18 carries for 103 yards. Jackson Dart had 230 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Overall, is one where, for as much as this Giants season has been terrible, there's definitely some hope for the future that they have with a lot of their young core. Jackson Dart had a pretty nifty touchdown pass where he was like in the middle of getting sacked and shovel passed it to his tight end, whose name I'm blanking on. It was, give me one second. Daniel Bellinger, that's who it was, who made a nice move and scored like a 30-yard touchdown. It was cool. It was a nice little play. For the Cowboys, they have fired their defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus, after having historically one of the worst defenses of all time, which is not surprising. Once again, they traded away Micah Parsons, and then they had no pass rush or any secondary players either. So yeah, there's no real surprise there. For the Giants, don't think they really got rid of anyone else. Looks like Joe Shane is staying for the Giants. Not really sure why, but I mean, I guess this draft wasn't too bad, but his first couple, not so great. But yeah, so Cowboys outside of their defensive coordinator, seems like that's all for personnel changes. Giants, who had obviously fired Brian Daboll a long time ago at this point in the season, are keeping their general manager. So after that, we go to the Tennessee Titans going into Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Jaguars having an amazing season. Titans are not. Titans finishing with the second overall pick. They scored 1 touchdown to start the game, and then Cam Ward got injured, and then they didn't score a single point since, as the Jacksonville Jaguars would win 41-7. The Jags also clinched the number 3 seed, I believe. Was it 3 or 4? I think it was 3. Yes, they finished with the 3 seed with a lot of momentum going into the playoffs. And yeah, that's about all I can say. Parker Washington got injured in this game. I don't know how bad it is. I think it's not bad really all that much. Let me see if I click on his name, if I get any news on him. Don't see much. I just remember him going down in this game, but considering I haven't really seen much on him, I think he's going to be okay and will probably be seen in the wild card round. Let's see. Cam Little also made a 67-yard field goal to end the half in the first half in this game. So that was cool. He now has the longest and second longest field goals in NFL history in the regular season, and also in preseason, because he made a 70-yarder in preseason, then he made a 68-yarder and a 67-yarder in the regular season. So go Cam Little. That's pretty much all I can say about this. The Jags are one of the hotter teams in football at the moment. The Titans are looking for a new head coach and a lot more in the offseason, and that's about it. Like complete inverse records: Titans 3-14, Jags 13-4, and yeah. So next up, going to the other AFC South divisional matchup, the Indianapolis Colts going into Houston to take on the Texans. The Texans finishing with the 4 seed after a win here. They're the 5 seed. My bad, because they are a wild card team. Because the Jags will win the AFC South. And this game was actually pretty close, surprisingly enough. Riley Leonard had a pretty good game. The Texans would win 38-30, but again, close game. Alec Pierce was having a really good game until he made slight contact with an official that caused him to get ejected. It was really dumb. He had 4 catches for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I'm pretty sure he's a free agent at the end of the season. So there's a good chance he gets a pretty big bag by some team. Not sure which team, but some team will probably be paying him a lot. Let's see because what round was he drafted? So he was a 2022 second round pick, actually. And yeah, so he should be a free agent. So there's a name to look out for, essentially. The Texans, it took them a little bit to get going, but then their offense did finally show up. Their defense didn't, which is surprising. Like their usual reliant defense was taking a break this week, getting ready for the eventual winner of the Sunday night game, which I'll get to in a little bit. And yeah, luckily for them, their offense finally showed up again against a really battered Colts defense. So the season from hell that started out as the season from heaven for the Colts, but then quickly dipped into the season from hell is finally over. They will, however, be keeping both Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. Steichen, I'm not super surprised about because he seemed to be a pretty good head coach. Ballard, I'm a little surprised, though, because he has not really had a great track record over the past, 8 years, I'm pretty sure, as the Colts GM. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. They obviously don't have their first round pick for this year or next year because of the Sauce Gardner trade. So, I'm very curious to see what they will be doing in the offseason. For the Texans, though, once again, riding a good bit of momentum and going into the wild card round as a road team, actually. Then we'll move on to the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills. In Buffalo, in the final regular season game, potentially game depending on how things roll out. Like there could potentially be a playoff game in there, but for now, the final regular season game in Highmark Stadium, the Buffalo Bills home stadium, as they will be moving to a new stadium by next season. And as a fitting send-off to Highmark, they just completely destroy the Jets 35-8. Just completely destroyed the Jets. I'm pretty sure Josh Allen was playing this game. No, never mind. I'm not. I was thinking of something else. But yeah, Mitch Trubisky is actually playing this game. Josh Allen started this game. That's what it was, because he wanted to keep his starting streak alive. He played 1 snap, and then Mitch Trubisky came in, threw 4 touchdowns at 259 yards on 22 of 29 attempts. No interceptions, which means, of course, the New York Jets are the first team in, I think it's 100 years, to never record a single interception on the season. So for some reason, that means Aaron Glenn is sticking around. I don't know why the Jets are keeping him around, because he does not seem to be a very good head coach. I get that their entire team is just terrible, but I don't think Aaron Glenn's doing much of a good job either. The Jets just kind of didn't really do anything. They scored 1 touchdown at the end of the game, and that was about it. The Bills have a little bit of momentum going into the playoffs. They'll be taking on the Jaguars, so that should be a very fun game. That's about it there. That was also a 4:25 game. The Colts-Texans were the last of the 1 o'clock games. So next up, the Detroit Lions, and the Chicago Bears in Chicago. And this game Chicago could have gotten the 2 seed. I think had they won, they could have got the 2 seed had the Eagles lost. But I think it was also if they won, they would have gotten the 2 seed. But if they lost and the Eagles lost, they would have got anyway. So there was stuff to play for the Bears. So they actually trotted out their starting offense, which did not actually play all that well. It was a very typical Bears game of their offense doing absolutely nothing for 3 quarters and then waking up and almost winning a game in the 4th quarter. Though this time they actually didn't complete the comeback. They would lose 19-16. It's a little concerning for the Bears that their offense did not look very good in this game against a Detroit team that has not had a very good defense this year. It was not the best game for the Bears. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform in the playoffs. They are going up against the Packers, and that's going to be a really fun game in the playoffs. But yeah, for the Lions, though, I mean, it was a good way to end the season at least. Ended on a high note and beating your division rival. They have also fired their offensive coordinator. The Lions have. I don't remember his name, but the guy they brought in to replace Ben Johnson at offensive coordinator did not do his job very well, to be honest. The Lions noticeably took a step back this year, and a lot of that was on the offense, so not too surprising there. So the Lions finished, I think, actually fourth in their division at 9-8. Them and the Vikings are both 9-8. So that's why I'm trying to find standings. There we go. What if I go to standings and then division? Yes, the Lions are last in the division. I think just because of tiebreaker with various different tiebreaker stuff and strength of schedule or whatever it is with the Vikings. So luckily for them, at least, they will be getting a fourth place schedule next season. So after that, the final of second to last of the late afternoon games, the Los Angeles Chargers going into Denver to take on the Broncos. And the Broncos, since had they won this game, which they did, 19-3, they would have gotten the 1 seed, which they did. The only problem with the Broncos is that their offense just didn't look very good. They were running their starting offense, and they just did not look good at all. The Chargers were resting Justin Herbert in this last game. They put in Trey Lance. Trey Lance did not have a very good game at all. It was not good. Honestly, this whole game was really bad. It was just very uninteresting football to watch. I wouldn't blame you if you turned this game off at halftime because it's not good. Literally the only thing that's really coming out of this, since the Chargers were locked into a wild card spot, they didn't really have much to play for. It was really just the Broncos trying to get the 1 seed, and they did. They just did it kind of ugly, which has kind of been their whole season. And then the last of the afternoon games was the other AFC West matchup, the much eliminated and very down on their luck Kansas City Chiefs going into Las Vegas to take on the Raiders, who were going into the week. Had the Raiders lost this game, and it was the only thing that really made this game interesting was that had the Raiders lost this game, they would have locked in the number 1 pick. But with the Giants winning over Dallas and bumping them up to the number 5 pick, the Raiders were already a lock for the first overall pick in the draft going into this game. So there's literally nothing to care about. And this game was terrible. The Raiders won 14-12 in a game that had quarterbacks like Aiden O'Connell, Chris Oludokun, Shane Buechele, and Kenny Pickett all take snaps. Kenny Pickett literally threw the ball 4 times, one of them being an interception. I think he got injured in this game, either that or just taken out. It was just not good. Like, Kansas City's 2 quarterbacks finished with, between the 2 of them, they finished with a net passing yards of 84, and that was throwing the ball. The 2 of them finished together 18 of 31 for 84 net yards, no touchdowns and no interceptions, getting sacked 8 times for 62 total yards. And Aiden O'Connell threw the ball 102 yards, getting sacked 1 time for 5 yards, not throwing a touchdown or an interception. Between the 4 AFC West teams that played this week, none of them scored touchdowns. All of them just kicked field goals. There might have been 1 touchdown at the start of the Broncos game. Hang on. There might have been no offensive touchdowns or something like that. Wait. Was it a pick 6? Was that what it was? Yeah, it was a pick 6. That's what it was. So there was 1 touchdown. It was defensive. There were no offensive touchdowns in either of those 2 games. Pete Carroll has also been fired for the Raiders after 1 season, which is not surprising because the Raiders were pretty easily the worst team in football this year. They were terrible. And it's not surprising that Pete Carroll is gone. He just didn't seem to really bring anything. So it'll be interesting to see who the Raiders target. If they go younger, like unproven, or if they go with another retread, essentially head coach, which they seem to have been doing a good bit. I mean, because they went Josh McDaniels and then they went Antonio Pierce, and neither of them worked out, despite them one being a retread, the other being unproven. So I don't know. Who knows at this point? The Chiefs haven't really heard much in terms of their personnel, like executive personnel or coaching staff at all. Obviously, the losing Patrick Mahomes did not help them whatsoever, but very, very disappointing season for the Chiefs. And we'll see what happens for them going in. Now for the first time in a good while, they're bad again. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's very interesting to wonder what the health of Patrick Mahomes is going to be like by the time 2026, the season for 2026 rolls around. I also forgot one other late afternoon game. The Arizona Cardinals going into Los Angeles taking on Rams. This is the last game. Arizona was without Marvin Harrison Jr. in this game, along with, I'm sure, some others. And for a little while, actually, the Cardinals were playing the Rams close. And then the fourth quarter, like they're hanging in with the Rams for a good 2.5 plus quarters. And then they just kind of fell apart at the end. And I mean, credit for them for sticking with a pretty solid team in the Rams, or a really solid team, I should say, in the Rams. But yeah, it was, in the end, the unsurprising outcome happened. The Rams would win 37-20. And yeah, that's about it for this game. Stafford threw for 4 touchdowns, bring himself back into MVP status. I'm going to go over awards here in a second after I finish the Sunday night game, because I'm going to do who I think is going to get each award. But yeah, the one other piece of news is that Jonathan Gannon, the Arizona Cardinals head coach, has been fired, which, again, I'm not surprised. I've been saying it a good chunk this season, is that there's a decent chance he was going to be gone. I was a little surprised they got rid of him, because I feel like they were a little hesitant on it, but he has since been fired. I think there's a good chance he goes back to being a defensive coordinator rather than a head coach. So it'll be interesting to see where Jonathan Gannon ends up. Now then, though, the Sunday night game. This game was huge. The Baltimore Ravens going into Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers for all the marbles in the AFC North. Whoever won this game would go to the playoffs. Whoever lost would be eliminated. So huge game on the line. And to start out, it looked like the Ravens were going to run away with this. They gave the ball to Derrick Henry a bunch. He was just completely running through the Steelers' defense, and it looked all Ravens to start. Then the Ravens kind of slowed down a little bit, but it still definitely felt like they were in control. The Steelers were not doing anything on offense, and it was 10-3 at halftime. And it was like you could tell it was either going to break one or two ways. It was either the Ravens were going to remember how to use Derrick Henry again and actually secure the victory, or they would choke it away and the Steelers would come back and win. And when the third quarter started, it started to look like the Steelers were going to come back and win, because they scored 10 points. The Ravens scored nothing. And the Steelers were starting to show up again. Lamar Jackson was also back for this game, so the Ravens are pretty much at full strength. Cam Hayward and Nate Wiggins both got injured in this game, which is kind of frustrating for both teams. Kyle Hamilton also went down with an injury. And it was very, very typical AFC North football. I'll say that. Like there's a lot of sloppiness, a lot of just kind of offensive futility, and a lot of very splashy defensive plays. And then the fourth quarter happened, and then both defenses just decided to take a break. There was 27 points scored in the fourth quarter alone. Basically, both teams were trading touchdowns back and forth. Like the Steelers just forgot to cover Zay Flowers for like the entire fourth quarter. Zay finished with 4 catches for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was kind of crazy. And like basically all that came in the fourth quarter as well. The Ravens also just forgot to defend as well. I mean, I get that they had a number of defenders injured, but still it was the old Ravens defense started showing up. But in the end, the Steelers went up. They scored a touchdown late, and they went up 26-24. Chris Boswell went on to kick the extra point, and then he missed. And that was really big, and there was like 50-ish seconds left to go. And the Ravens had, I think, all 3 of their timeouts at that point, or 2 of their 3 timeouts maybe. They had a lot, essentially. And the Ravens started marching down the field. And then they got to like their own 40-yard line, and it was a 4th and 7. And then Lamar Jackson hit Isaiah Likely for this huge like 30-yard completion on 4th down to set them up like right near field goal range. Then they inched a little bit closer instead of for, I think, a 44-yard field goal for Tyler Loop to send them to the playoffs. And unfortunately for the Ravens, Tyler Loop missed the field goal. So the Ravens are out, Steelers are in. And the big, really big news that comes out of this, outside of the Steelers making the playoffs, is that the Ravens have actually done it. They have fired John Harbaugh. That actually happened earlier today while I was recording for my Metroid Prime 4 Let's Play. When you watch one of the episodes coming out probably later this week, you'll see my reaction towards the end of one of those videos. But yeah, after 18 years, a Super Bowl victory, two like franchise quarterbacks in Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh is gone. I know a lot of Ravens fans are happy about it. I know the Ravens fans that I know personally are pretty happy about it. So I personally think it was pretty long overdue at this point. Harbaugh just didn't seem to be able to evolve enough. And while he had a lot of good teams around him, they just always seemed to fold a lot in high pressure situations. Like, you can trace back to even over the past 5 years or so. Like, look at how many blown leads the Ravens have had. And it's a lot. And that's just one of the many things that I think contributed to Harbaugh's eventual firing. I think there's some behind the scenes issues going on right now with Harbaugh wanting to like run it back with the coordinators he has, despite other people not wanting to do that. I don't know. We'll probably see more of that going as the days run by. I thought I heard like a bomb whistle going off outside my house for a sec, but it was just a plane that like just shook me out of my like zone into podcasting for a sec. That was just a very loud whistle, and I don't know why. It's just completely just took me out of that real quick. Anyway, no bomb whistle from what I can hear. I think I'm safe. We're all good. But anyway, yeah. The actual bomb that was dropped was that John Harbaugh got fired. So that for the first time in a long time, the Ravens are looking for a new head coach. It'll be just their fourth head coach in their franchise's existence, which is both surprising and also not super surprising, given that the Ravens have only been around since the late 90s. I think like mid 90s, whatever it was. But then again, it's still credit to a pretty competent organization. It's same with the Steelers. Like, I get, some people, like plenty of Steelers fans will argue about, keeping coaches around for too long, but it's more impressive with the Steelers that they have only had 3 head coaches in their entire existence since they've been around since like the 60s or whatever it was. And it was Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin are their only coaches in history, which is still crazy to me, a crazy stat. But yeah, that does it for the regular season in 2025. Once again, these games this week, not very interesting. I wish they were better, but they just were not. There was like maybe 1 or 2 games that were actually good, like the Colts Texans game and then the Ravens Steelers. And honestly, that was about it. Like everything else, I guess the Browns Bengals is also pretty good, and maybe the Saints Falcons. And the Saturday games were also, and even then they weren't great. But yeah, anyway. So I'm going to go real quick. I'm going to go through my picks for the awards this season. There's one really obvious one, and I'll get to that. The Defensive Player of the Year. Pretty obvious there. Everything else, though, like there's a good case you can make for a lot of players for this. And coaches as well for the Coach of the Year. So my MVP, which pretty much a 2-horse race between Matt Stafford and Drake May. I think I'm going to give it to Stafford, but I can see this going either way. This is really close, I think, because both of them put up very similar stats. Like you can give the argument that Stafford played under a better system and with better weapons. But then you also that's an argument against him. But then you also get the argument against Drake May of having a paper soft schedule. And it's like you can go back and forth. I have no horse in this race. I mean, I like Drake May because I'm a little bit of a Patriots fan through my family. But I think Stafford is just a little. I think he's going to edge Drake May out just a little bit for this award, but it's really, really close, which I think is cool. I always like close races like this. For my Offensive Player of the Year, again, this one can be. You can give this up to a couple players. My vote is Jackson Smith-Njigba. He just had a really, really dominant season, and I think he's just kind of embodies the offense as a whole, just the spirit of offense. You can also give this to Puka Nacua, who's right there with him in the receiving category. You could also give it to Christian McCaffrey, who's having another insane season. But I think JSN will barely probably get the award. But I could definitely see it going to Puka or McCaffrey, even someone else maybe. Who knows? For my Defensive Player of the Year, this one's pretty obvious. It's Myles Garrett. You don't get it. Not every year you get a guy who has 23 sacks in the season. It literally never happened before. So yeah, I think that one's pretty obvious. For Offensive Rookie of the Year, this one I think is also pretty close, but I think it's going to go to Tedros McMillan. It was looking like Emeka Egbuka early on, but then he faded away very quickly. You could maybe give it to Jackson Dart. I just don't think he's played enough. And even then, he's played all right. But like, had he played a full season, then I think there was a better shot. He could have gotten Offensive Rookie of the Year, but I don't think so. You could also my thought is this could be between Tedero McMillan or Tyler Warren. I think I mentioned that last week as well, that Tyler Warren was a good candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think Tedero McMillan is going to get it because he's a wide receiver and he broke 1,000 yards in his rookie season. So I think there's that, but it's close. But I think it will go to Tedero McMillan. For Defensive Rookie of the Year, this one I honestly didn't really know. I think I said in my like week 5 one whenever I did this, like the early season MVP or awards stuff that I did, I said Carson Schweschinger, and I'm gonna stick with Carson Schweschinger. Too many S's in his name. You need to stop. And like there was no one this year on the defensive side of the ball for rookies that I feel like really stood out. Like there's definitely a lot of really good rookie defensive players, but there wasn't like one guy just completely standing above the rest to like really make a case for himself. So I think Schweschinger, who's just like played very consistent over the entire season and has been one of the many key contributors on a very strong Browns defense, I think there's a good chance he takes the cake here. Now, Coach of the Year, this one could go in a lot of directions. You could go Mike Vrabel. I think he's actually the favorite right now to win. You could go Mike McDonald. I think though it's going to go to Liam Cohen. He's just done an insane job right now with a team that has been floundering for so long, and it's not even that. Like, I mean, it took a little bit for Jacksonville to really get going. They were very streaky to start out the season, but looking at them now, like they're a legit team in my eyes. Like I feel like Cohen has done a really good job at building a bit of an identity for Jacksonville on both sides of the ball. Like it's not just the offense for the Jacksonville. Yeah, I started to go Jags, then I was like, anyway, it's looking like the offensive identity for Jacksonville is obviously shaping up more and more with each passing week. But the defense has also been very, very strong. And for a guy who was an offensive coordinator, in Liam Cohen, who's now their head coach, like assembling a defense like that. I get he's had some good players like Josh Hines-Allen and all that, but still, and also Trayvon Walker, former number 1 overall pick, but still, I just think he's done a really good job overall for a team that has historically been very bad, especially at the head coaching position. So that's why I think Liam Cohen should at least win Coach of the Year. But you could, there's. I mean, like you could also throw in Ben Johnson. Like I think there's also a good chance that Ben Johnson wins Coach of the Year. There's a lot of coaches this season that have a good shot at winning Coach of the Year. And finally, my comeback player of the year is one that I wasn't really quite sure about. So actually, I had to look up the betting odds for this one because I couldn't really think of anyone off the top of my head. And the favorite for this one is Chris Olave. And when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I think the top two were Aiden Hutchinson and Chris Olave. And I could see either of them winning, but I think Chris Olave has a good chance of winning it because he had, the numerous concussions last season, and this season finished with, I know, over 1,000 yards. Let me actually look up how much he finished with total because I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, Olave had a really good season. There's definitely a ton of questions going into the season about his long-term health just because of the amount of concussions he had been dealing with. And they're like, people were really worried about him, and weren't sure if he was going to be the same guy. But instead he finished with 100 catches on the dot for 1,163 yards and 9 touchdowns on a pretty not very good at best Saints team. So yeah, I think it's a good chance that Chris Olave wins comeback player of the year for a very solid season, for him on a very disappointing Saints team. Now then, one last thing before we go. I am going to, first I'm going to actually run down the playoff bracket, and then I'm going to give my predictions for what's going to happen. Because why not? It's playoff season. You got to get some predictions. So in the AFC, the 1 seed is the Broncos. They will be getting the bye, and they will be playing the winner of the, I'm pretty sure, the winner of the Steelers and the Texans taking place in Houston. At least that's kind of how it's shown. The Broncos will be playing someone in round 2, but in round 1, the first game. Actually, what is the? No, I don't need to go by games in terms of schedule. But yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers will be taking on the Texans on. Is that what day is that of the week? That on Monday night. That is the Monday night game. The Texans are currently favored by 3, at least in the spread from the looks of things. Yeah. So the spread is -3. I don't care about betting. I just kind of threw that in there. But yeah. Anyway, starting this the third time. Texans, Steelers in Houston. Should be an interesting game. After that, the Bills and the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Oh yeah. So I said it's in Houston. I don't know why I read it that way. It's in Pittsburgh because they're the division leader. I'm a little tired right now. I had a day. Anyway, yeah. The Steelers Texans is Monday night in Pittsburgh. The Jags Bills in Jacksonville is Sunday at 1:00. The Patriots and the Chargers is Sunday at 8:00. That is in New England. So that is the slate for the AFC. Then in the NFC, the Seahawks are the 1 seed. They're getting the bye. The 4-seeded Panthers are taking on the 5th-seeded Rams on Saturday at 4:30 in Carolina. The 3-seed Eagles will be taking on the 6-seed 49ers in Philadelphia on Sunday at 4:30. And then the 2-seeded Bears will be taking on the 7-seeded Packers in Chicago on Saturday at 8:00 p.m. Now then, I'll go back to the AFC real quick and give my predictions. So for the Steelers and the Texans, I think the Texans are going to win that matchup. I just think the Texans are a much better football team at the moment, and the Steelers have not shown much to show that they're any different from the past teams that have snuck into the playoffs at a very middling record and then lost immediately. For the Jags-Bills, this game could go either way. I could certainly see this going in the favor of the Jacksonville, keeping up their momentum, or going in favor of the Bills, who finally make a run for the Super Bowl that they've been missing for so long under Josh Allen. I, however, think that Jacksonville is going to win this game. I just think they're playing better football right now, and this Bills team is very weak in compared to other Bills teams of the past couple of years. For the Patriots-Chargers, I think the Patriots are going to win this. I just think the Chargers don't have enough protection on the offensive line. Their offensive line is just, I've covered it multiple times this season. Injuries to both tackles that are very good in Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, and their interior offensive line is not much better, and their replacement tackles are not good. So I just think that the Chargers just don't have enough right now to get over a Patriots squad that has been playing lights out as of late. Now, I'm pretty sure the Steelers, Texans, whoever wins that goes on to play the Broncos. I think that the Broncos will... I'm honestly, you know what? I could actually see the Texans winning that. This is another one where I could see this going either way. But I think there's a good chance the Texans actually upset the Broncos. I think they're teams that play pretty similar brands of football this year, where their offense is pretty streaky at best, and is definitely not the focal point of the team. Their defense is really good. I just think the Texans have a better defense right now. It's honestly the number 1 and 2 number 1 and number 2 defenses in the league, basically, or at least number 1 and 2 defenses in the AFC for sure. The Texans have an insanely good defense. The Broncos are not far behind. I mean, I don't know. I could certainly see this one going away, but I think I'm going to give it the edge to the Texans in that matchup. In the game between the Jags and the Patriots, again, I might go Jacksonville here. I'm really bullish on Jacksonville right now. I think they're just playing really good football lately, and I mean it could all crash and burn, but I just like the chances a little bit more, and I like the Patriots, but I'm still not super confident again with them in these type of games. So yeah, I think my prediction is Jags Texans AFC Championship game, and again, this one could go either way, and that'll be a really fun championship game of a divisional matchup between those two, and I think I might go Jacksonville there. Again, that's one I could certainly see going either way, but I think I might put Jacksonville in the Super Bowl here, which would be really weird to see because I don't think they've ever made the Super Bowl before, but I think it might be time. It could be time to see Jacksonville in the Super Bowl. As for the NFC, Panthers-Rams, I think even though the Panthers beat the Rams early in the season, I think the Rams are going to take this one. I don't like the Panthers' chances right now. I like the Panthers. I just don't think they're going to win this one. Then for the Eagles and 49ers, I think the 49ers are going to win this game. I think it's going to be pretty sloppy, but again, this is also me being an Eagles hater, but they just have not looked good recently at all. especially on the offense. I mean, there's a good chance the Eagles defense just completely shuts down the 49ers, and that'll win them the game. But this is a Eagles team that has regressed heavily on offense. And I think the 49ers, they can get their stuff together and put up a good offensive performance against the Eagles. I think they are certainly looking for some revenge against the Eagles after the past couple of years in the playoffs. So I think there's a good shot the 49ers beat the Eagles here. Now for Bears-Packers, this one again, I think it go either way, just because I feel like the Bears are a little they play with fire a bit too much for their own good, and then the Packers are just so dead on arrival, basically. And I do think the Bears are going to win this game. I think it's going to be closer than some people might expect, but I think the Bears will win this game. And so after that, the Seahawks and the Rams would face off, theoretically, in my predictions in the divisional round. And I think the Seahawks are going to win that one. It's like the Jaguars. I think the Seahawks are just playing too good of a brand of football right now to lose. And I have very high expectations for the Seahawks right now. So I think the Seahawks are going to advance to the NFC Championship game. As for the 49ers and the Bears, again, this one I could see going either way. And same with honestly, the Rams and the Seahawks, I could see that one going either way as well. But I think between the 49ers and the Bears, that's a good question. I might go San Francisco here. I just think they have a lot more experience than the Bears do, and I think that's going to probably help them a bit because, again, the Bears, so many of their games this year have been getting off to really poor offensive starts and then clawing their way back from the impossible, and I just don't think they can do that against a team like San Francisco. I think that's probably what would happen, and I think they would fall short. So I didn't actually intend for this, but both conference championships would be between divisional opponents. So the Seahawks and the Niners, their conference championship, I think would probably go similar to what we saw this week. Actually, I think the Seahawks would win. So my prediction is for Super Bowl 50, Super Bowl 60. Actually, that's what it is. Jeez, we're already on Super Bowl 60. That is crazy. Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, so actually in the 49ers stadium. It would be between the Seahawks and the Jaguars, and I think the Seahawks would win that one between that matchup. I think the Seahawks are just playing too good of a brand of football right now to lose. I got their offense installed occasionally, and that's, I think, what's going to do them in is if their offense just randomly falls apart. But they have a very good offense when it likes to roll, and their defense is also really, really good. So, you get a team with both, and then also good special teams as well, like on the return game and also the kicking game. Ignore this week with Jason Myers, but I think the Seahawks are too good right now. Gonna quote good old urinating tree there. They're Pecco and Nay, so they're obviously gonna lose to whoever in their first game. But yeah, that's my prediction. I think the Seahawks will win the Super Bowl this year. But honestly, this is one where probably outside of the Steelers and the Panthers, I think there's a good shot any of these teams win the Super Bowl. And maybe also the Eagles. But that's also me being a hater because I don't want to see the Eagles win. Like, really, as long as the Eagles lose, I'll be happy. That's all I care about in this postseason. But that'll do it for this week's episode. I don't think I have anything else to cover. I have no idea what I'm going to do for this Saturday. I'm tempted to do another play-by-play of whatever the Saturday night wildcard game would be. Which one was that again? I just said it not that long ago, but it would be the Patriots-Chargers. Yeah, that one's going to be whatever. I don't think I'm going to do that one. I might do one for the divisional rounds, just because I also want to mix something up for my Saturday episodes. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do Saturday. If anything, I'll try and get something out, but I don't know if I might not also, cause I'll probably be watching football instead of recording an episode, but we'll see. I guess I don't have to record on Saturday, but I'm rambling on. Ignore my ramblings. I am very tired. As for the Tuesday episodes, since obviously regular football is no longer done, I'm going to be continuing this through the postseason, obviously. So expect a postseason recap each week on Tuesday. I'm not sure how much I can actually, or how much I'll be able to stretch out, like the division and conference matchups. There's probably other news I could cover in between, but yeah, so those episodes might get a little bit shorter. But yeah, after that, not quite sure. I might keep Tuesdays as like sports days for my podcast. So I might stick with like NFL stuff. I might do like a baseball episode of like covering baseball news and all that, and like various off-season stuff for baseball. And then, once baseball season gets started, I might do a recap series of baseball, of like the baseball week then. Maybe. We'll see. Not quite sure, but that's months away at this point. But yeah, that's going to do it for that. Keep an eye out for Tuesdays and Saturdays once again, as the norm will get shaken up a little bit, essentially, with the end of the football season. So that's going to do it for me. I've been your host, Henry. Don't know why I had to state that, but I did anyway. Try something new there for my outro. And anyway, yeah, as you can tell, I'm very tired. Thank you very much for listening.